So, what's the logical outcome of teaching kids as young as 7 to be activists, agents of social change? Well, by the time they get to high school, they are agents of social change. As I've said on this channel many times, what we're seeing now, this cultural revolution, is not new. It didn't just start. It didn't start with George Floyd. It didn't start with the election even of Donald Trump. I'm not sure exactly when it started in earnest. I would place it at Common Core, although it's been going on for a very long time, decades in fact, but it really kicked it into high gear with Barack Obama. Do any of you remember scenes like this?
We're gonna spread happiness. We're gonna spread freedom. Obama's gonna change it. Obama's gonna lead 'em. We're gonna change it and rearrange it. We're gonna change the world.
Okay, I think we've seen enough. Okay. This Yes We Can was Barack Obama's slogan. Imagine, also. Hope and change, also his. All of this, plus you saw the little girl in the beginning, was about Barack Obama. It was specifically about Barack Obama. That was 2009. It's 2021. So those children are already adults. But how many children came after them and went through schools with teachers just like that? How many of those people are still teaching? How many of those people thought that an American president elected by the people would be the person you sing to? That what you look to the president to do is change the world or transform things, fundamentally transform the country, even though he swears to uphold the Constitution, which pretty much limits his power, so he can't actually do that. He personally can't do that. The logical progression of that is what we see today. None of this should come as a surprise. If you voted for Obama, congratulations. This is what you voted for. This is the hope and change you voted for. Sorry to get political, that's just the fact. No, this wasn't Donald Trump doing it. Nobody sang songs of praises to Donald Trump. In fact, at my daughter's charter school, they had a day of mourning. Yes, literally, they lowered the flag to half-mast. Teachers wore black to school. I think the message was clear. We put our faith or our lack of faith and our fear and our woe and our misery all on one individual when we are a country with at least shared powers in our government. Always were anyway. Executive branch might be too strong, but didn't ever think the president was going to fix things for me. That's not what I was taught in school, and I'm wondering what they're teaching these kids in school. So what happens now when you've got teenagers who've gone to school ingesting a steady diet of this kind of rhetoric and philosophy? That government is there to fix things that are broken, and that your job as a student is to be an agent of social change, starting with singing songs and then moving on to actual activism, like what you see in this picture. Why am I talking about this? Why am I bringing this up? Because since it's the logical progression of all of this, you parents who are going up against school boards, trying to get the curriculum to focus on the basics, to teach your kid to read, to teach your kid math, and to not spend every waking moment of your child's time talking about racism and equity, especially when they can't read, you're going to come up against students. You're going to come up against students. You're going to come up against student groups like this one in the picture, and you're going to come up against student representatives to school boards. These school board student representatives are chosen by the school board. They are nominated, I imagine, by people on the school board, but also often by teacher association members, in other words, union members. And they are almost always, without exception so far that I've heard, chosen from amongst the students most politically active in the correct direction, if you get my drift. So these are the equivalent of Mao's Little Red Army today in America. These child representatives are all in on critical theory, social justice, gender theory, multiculturalism, intersectionality, comprehensive sex education, you name it. Whatever it is you, the parents, are fighting to get at least more transparency about, they're there to fight you. How are they going to do it? With passive aggression, of course. Well, sometimes aggression, but mostly passive aggression. Here's how it works. I know because it was done to me, or one of these members tried to use me for his little campaign. They go around looking for people, parent groups on the internet, social media, etc., who are organizing to speak to school boards or organizing to elect school board members, run for school board, etc. And they approach them like a concerned kid at the school who just wants to talk because they have some ideas and they think you have some misconceptions about what's going on at school, and they just want to engage you in a civil conversation. They have questions, you see. They're just a kid. They're just 16. They just have questions. Or conversely, they come right at you full bore. How can you do this? And we're just kids and you don't know what you're talking about and we want this. Like they speak for everybody. When of course, they don't speak for your child or the children of any of the other people who are working with you. But apparently they speak for all the children in the school. And they call you names if they're being aggressive. They're super nice if they're not at first. If you make the mistake of engaging them in any way, shape, or form, you pretty much better keep agreeing with them or keep indulging them, because the minute you don't, they will turn around and use every single word you've said against you. They'll use the entire conversation against you. They'll twist your words to be things you didn't say or to mean things you didn't mean. And they're actually likely to go and accuse you of cyberbullying them because they usually engage you online. And even though cyberbullying is a serious offense, and even though it requires evidence, it can, in these days, wreck your reputation. You could be canceled. You could lose your job. All they've got to do is get the media to listen to them about these mean parent groups are going after children. They're children. So, this is happening. You need to be on your guard. As far as organization, they're organizing in droves to fight very specific causes, which are almost always identified by the adults in these situations. Again, the school board members who are already in place and the teachers' unions. They recruit these kids. They help these kids with marketing, with money, and so forth. They're hiding behind the kids because if you criticize the kids, if you engage the kids online, engage the teen groups, you're going after kids. How could you do that? You big meanie, big bully, going after kids. So what they're doing in New York is they're using these kids to advance the goals of the people who want to do away with the advanced high schools, those that require tests to get in. The claim, and it is at best a claim, that the schools are racist because Black and brown students, Black and Hispanic students are allegedly underrepresented there. I'm not really sure what math they're doing, but they seem to believe there should be equal representation, not just proportional representation. But even so, they're still fewer than there are Asian students. There are not a whole lot of white students, but a lot of Asian students. And so they say they're racist against the Black and Hispanic students. They say that the test, the merit-based test itself, is racist because it's just a test. And that's not fair. I can't think of anything more fair. It's absolutely colorblind, a test. You don't know what race the person is. You fill out the little thing. It goes through a machine, and you either scored high or you scored low. So you get in based on your score. But the entire premise is that the only reason there aren't more kids of color in these schools is that the test is racist. The very existence of the test, they want to do away with the test, which of course will do away with the schools being advanced high schools. If you don't need a test to get in and they start having quotas for how many people look a certain way or come from a certain background, the school ceases to be an advanced school. It's just going to become another high school. And apparently that's what they want. They're even saying integrate now as if it's segregated on purpose. It's not segregated. What's more, the story isn't even true. What I mean is the test obviously isn't racist. The school's not racist. And the kids who are bright enough to go there, who are Black and Hispanic, have a better deal. They're getting handpicked by nonprofits out of the schools where they are. And they're being given special training, tutoring, test prep, etc., to get into the city's Tony private schools and even upstate prep schools with full scholarships. They will then likely go on to get full scholarships to college because of it. That's a better deal by most people's estimation than trying really hard on your own to seek out the information, even if you don't speak English, and many of the parents of these Asian kids don't because they're recent immigrants. And even if you're poor, which most of them are, and their schools are even worse than some of the schools that are predominantly Black, you have to go and get all the information, make sure your kid is prepared for the test, make sure your kid takes the test and does well, so they can even have a chance to get into one of the city schools, which might be their only chance to go to college or a good college with a scholarship because they can't afford to go otherwise. It is their only shot at upward mobility. They don't have somebody going around and plucking them out and finding them with recruiters. But they're looking for the Black and Hispanic kids. But the mayor doesn't want to talk about that. Teens Take Charge doesn't seem to know about it. And if they do, they want to talk about it. The union doesn't want to talk about it because it's not their goal. It's not the real story. They are saying it's racism. It's not racism. It's not racism. I just told you where the kids are. The kids who are bright enough to go there are not being kept out. They're not being barred from going there. They're being handpicked to go elsewhere. They want to get rid of these schools because these schools make the other schools look really bad. Because the discrepancy in performance is so enormous that it really highlights how poorly the teachers and the administrators and everybody at those other schools are doing their jobs. An advanced school is supposed to be advanced by virtue of the material, not the performance of the students. You still should have students who are at the top of their class and proficient at math and English in the non-advanced school. And they don't. So it really stands out. It also supports the notion that parental involvement and support and student effort have more to do with success than the school. So we can't have that. Can't have that because that also makes the others look bad. All of this is a giant cover-up for lack of effectiveness. And they pretend it's because of racism. And the kids who are getting involved in these movements are dupes. This article calls them the child soldiers of the culture war. That's what they are. They're being used like little soldiers, like Mao's Red Guard. They don't know any of this information. If they do, they're told not to think about it, not to consider it, or it's a right-wing conspiracy theory. Whatever they're told, they believe it. Whereas kids used to question authority, now we sing songs to authority. Authority is going to change the world, and we're going to be right there beside them, helping them. This is creepy. This is creepy. So what should you do? What should you do if you run into one of these child soldiers? Now, I can't help you if you run into this many of them on the steps, except to say don't engage. Don't speak to them. Don't look at them. Just walk right through them. Just make a beeline to walk right through them. Put them in the position where they have to aggress against you. Don't touch them. Don't look at them. Don't speak to them. If, on the other hand, you are approached online by one of them, Don't engage, ignore them, immediately block them. Anybody who identifies themselves to you as a student, you should block. You should treat this as a threat to your reputation as well as your sanity, because they want to get you to react. They're human shields. So they need to take the hit and then, because the more of you they can remove from the equation, the better protected the elders they're protecting are. Don't let them do it. Don't engage. Ignore them, block them. If they put themselves physically in your way where it's not like this, but they ask you questions at a school board meeting, or they demand to have answers to your questions, or whatever, where it's like they've put you on the spot and you feel like you must engage, you don't have a choice. Here's what you should do. Look right past them. Do not look at them. Do not make eye contact. Simply say, I do not engage with minors. I don't carry on conversations with non-voting members. They don't have a vote on these school boards. They're just representatives. Don't say anything snide. Don't say anything rude. Just say, I don't engage with minors. Don't do it. You can say that 100 times in a row. They can keep talking and talking and talking. It will become obvious. You then begin speaking, especially if you're timed, you begin speaking to the voting members. Just say, I'm speaking to the voting members of this board. Here's what I have to say, et cetera, and so forth. And they let them sit there and pitch their little temper fit. If the board insists that you answer the child's question, you are not required to do so. They're not the police or a judge. They aren't going to put you in jail or hold you in contempt. You just say, I am under no obligation to do that, and I don't engage with minors. I don't do that. It's not something I have to do, and I'm not going to do it. I'm going to speak to you. And if they get really belligerent, if the adults get really belligerent about it, just say, why are you hiding behind the child? Why are you insisting I speak to the child? I can speak to you. I can say what I have to say to you. I will answer the question to you. But don't look at the kid. Don't answer the kid. Make it very clear you're not engaging with them, because they will use every single thing you say as if you've attacked them. And these things are recorded. They make it onto the internet. You do not want your face, your name, your voice, or anything attached to you to be associated with anything that looks belligerent towards a child. That's what they're hoping for. That is what they're begging for. They might approach you online. I just want to talk. Don't do it. Don't be stupid. They think you're stupid. They do. They think you're stupid. They think you're misunderstanding. Actually, they probably know you're not misunderstanding, but they're going to tell you they think you're misunderstanding what the school's doing, what the curriculum is about. They're true believers. They really believe that this is the most important thing ever. And because they just arrived on the scene 16 or 17 years ago and know absolutely nothing and have no perspective on life or history of this country or anything, they're convinced that you, person over the age of 25, were taught some whitewashed history where you never learned about the Tulsa Massacre, and you never learned about slavery, and you never learned about the Indian massacres, and you never learned about the internment camps, and you never learned about Hiroshima and Nagasaki, you never learned about Vietnam and Melee, and you never learned about, oh no, you never learned about it. You were just taught that America was perfect and everything was great. Yeah, that's what they think. That's what they think. They think you're an idiot. I think you just have been living in the Jim Crow South up until they were born, apparently. And maybe even after they were born, because they discovered racism and anti-racism. And without them, you're not going to be able to save the country from white supremacist doom. When you think about it that way, I think it'll be easier for you to just ignore them, because they're absolutely ignorant. Most of them have not traveled outside the country. They certainly don't know anything about the former East Bloc countries. They're woefully ignorant about the present day communist countries and what goes on in Marxist societies. Or they believe their teachers and union members when they say, well, they're not doing it right. Well, it's not exactly like that. Well, that's not what we want to do. Or this is different. This is different. They just don't know what they're talking about. So just remember that. They want to get your goat. So this is happening. It's happening in pretty much every district around the country. Like I said, there are activist groups like this Teens Take Charge in New York, and then there are individuals on school boards who are chosen by school board members, and they are chosen specifically to Be activists for the cause that you are fighting against. You will not find a student activist on your side. I mean, if you do, you've just found a unicorn, because that's not where they come from. They've been groomed, they've been trained, they're being activated. So I hope you found this helpful. I hope you feel better prepared next time you come up against one of them. And you will come up against them. You'll see them. If you're going to engage in this battle, as opposed to pull your kids out of the school like I suggest, you're going to come up against these kids. Be prepared. I strongly suggest, if you're part of a parent group mobilizing against this type of stuff in your school district, that you guard your electronic group membership lists like you guard Fort Knox. Make sure you personally know each and every member. Have very specific outreach to get to know them. Don't just accept every single person who wants to join, because one of the ways these kids get access to what you're doing and get that information to the school board is they enlist their parents, who love them and think they're so perfect, to join, or one of their friends to join and spy on you and take screenshots of what you're doing and report back to the board. Sometimes they create fake accounts, or they use their parents' accounts to spy on you themselves. Yes, it's insidious. You need to be very clever and very careful how you start these groups. Personally, I would meet in person. Pandemic is over. Figure out ways to meet in person. Send the messages around through either a phone tree or text messages or something that is a lot harder to hack or trace, and just make sure you know each and every person who's on that tree, and then tell them to make sure they know each and every person that they're talking to. Like, know your community, know them a whole lot better. Ask people to make a certain level of commitment to this before you invite them to these meetings. I'm serious. I hate to sound so scary, but if you don't want to be on the receiving end of a false allegation of cyberbullying or harassment from a teenager when you're an adult, if you don't want your employer to catch wind of that, or have this kid show up on the daily, in the nightly news saying, well, this parent group was bullying me and really mean to me, and they're just horrible racists, and then their names are, next thing you know, your boss is saying, yeah, we have to have a chat. If you don't want that to be you, then I strongly, strongly advise you to take steps and come up with countermeasures. Okay? I hope you found this helpful, useful, etc. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, maybe even join the channel. That'd be awesome. Or join the locals, even better. So thanks for watching. Have a great evening.